Hi, Madam Member and Ms. Lopez. May I ask you some questions?
Okay, thank you.
Can you tell me about when the abuse started from your husband, Carlos?
Yeah, so it was in 2014 when my husband was working in Uruguay. I found out that he was unfaithful to me. This started the breakdown of our marriage. There was a lot of arguments with verbal abuse, and whenever I visited him or he came to visit us, there was also physical abuse in the form of punching, squeezing. He even threatened to kill me if I ever considered leaving him.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear about that. So when did you decide to leave Carlos?
Well, I received messages from him in 2017 that I needed to leave our home. He was bringing his new girlfriend back to our house, and he said that if I didn't leave, he would kill me. So I heard he would come back in early 2019. So that's when I decided in 2018 to leave and come to Toronto.
Oh, why did you leave for Toronto?
Well, I first came here to have the baby because the baby's Miguel's, who is Carlos's first cousin. And I knew Carlos would be furious with me if he found out. So I panicked here. I panicked and came here in Toronto to come have the baby safely.
Oh, so why did you stay in Toronto and why didn't you file a claim until later?
Well, as I said, I had a relationship with Miguel, who is Carlos's cousin, and I was pregnant with his baby. Carlos accidentally found out from the hospital here in Canada. They sent him papers to our house in El Salvador that I was having a baby, and he was furious. He started messaging me horrible things and threatening me that he would kill me. I was so afraid to go back home. I had a visa to come to Canada, and it was the safest place to be. So that's why I filed later.
Mm-hmm. Why didn't you leave Carlos earlier in your relationship if he was abusive?
Well, I lived in El Salvador, and he lived for the most part of the time in Uruguay. Even though we started fighting in 2014, things were okay then. We lived apart, so I didn't feel like I needed to leave. It wasn't until he found a new girlfriend to bring back to El Salvador, and I found out that he was unfaithful, that things got bad. And it was then that he said that he would hurt me if I didn't leave.
Okay, so why did you not take your two children with you when you came to Canada?
Well, I panicked and fled because I was pregnant with Miguel's baby.
Right now, who's taking care of your two children?
It's my sister Emily. She's taking care
So what is your
of
plan
them.
for your two other children?
My sister is going to take care of them in El Salvador until hopefully they can come to Canada with me.
Okay, so why did you never leave Carlos previously?
I thought that he was just being mean. I never thought he would hurt me, and I loved him, and I wanted our family to be together. It wasn't until he started to threaten me that when he found out that I was pregnant with Miguel's baby, I realized my life was in danger.
When did you last have contact with Miguel?
We were talking all the time until I came to Canada, and I was devastated when he stopped talking to me. I was so worried about my baby, and I'm not really sure what happened to him.
Did others know about your relationship with Miguel?
Yes, I told my sister and other friends in El
Okay.
Salvador. My friends at my church here in Canada know as well.
Okay. So did he know that you were pregnant?
Yes, but he was a bit distant after I told him I was pregnant. He has always been afraid of his cousin Carlos, who's my husband.
Oh, okay. So how are your children doing with this? Have you had contact with them?
It's been horrible for them. Gustavo, my son, is not doing well at school. They're with my sister, but they want to be here with me. I've always been their only caregiver their entire life, and the separation has been hard. El Salvador is dangerous for my kids, and I'm afraid for gang violence or other harm for my older boy. It's not a safe place for them to be. Also, I'm really afraid of what their father might do to them because he's so angry with me.
Okay, so what do you think will happen to you if you're not granted protect status today and you have to go back to El Salvador?
I don't know what I would do. I have nowhere to go if I go home. I can't go anywhere near my town because it would be too dangerous for me. I don't have anywhere else in the country to go. I don't know, and I know Carlos would find me even if I tried to go elsewhere.
Have you reached out to local police in El Salvador for help?
I did. They just brushed it off and they treated it as a family matter. They ignored me when I complained to them completely.
So have any of your neighbors seen police come to your house?
Yes, some of the neighbors in El Salvador, they would see the police come to the house, and they also know Carlos was violent with me.
What did the police say each time you called them to the house?
We called the police, well, Gustavo, my son, did. When they arrived, my husband's brother, Luis, told them that it was just a family dispute and they didn't even take a report. I came back home after 2 days away, hoping for things to be better, but there was no change. A fellow and his wife from a community church came and spoke to Carlos too about his behavior and his treatment of me, but there was no improvement. In fact, things got even worse. The threats continued and I didn't know what to do. As a member of the community church, I had supporters. However, no one really wanted to say anything, and only a few members from the church got involved. They were sympathetic, but they didn't want to intervene too much because they knew what kind of man Carlos was.
I'm sorry to hear about that. So why are many of the police afraid of Carlos, as you mentioned in the BOC form?
Well, he's a bully and he's connected to everybody in the community. The whole town respects him and looks up to him as this macho person. The police always just do what he wants. He has money, he has influence, and everyone just does everything he says. Everyone respects him.
Have you ever tried to move to other locations in El Salvador?
No, I hadn't.
Why did you try to move elsewhere in your country?
Well, El Salvador, the country, it's small and it's very dangerous for women and children who are alone. I couldn't leave my community and be safe. We would have been killed or attacked or something horrible would have happened to us. I had my children with me. And, Carlos said that he'd find me no matter where I moved in the country, so I didn't even try.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear about that. Like, how can you know that your husband will find you in your country?
Well, as I said earlier, he's well connected and he knows all of the police. It's a small country with tight networks. I know he would find me.
Have you ever made a refugee claim in any other country?
No, never. This is my first one. I didn't plan to do this, but after I had the baby and Carlos found out, he threatened to kill me and the baby if he ever saw me again. I can't go back to El Salvador.
Why did you not seek refugee protection in Uruguay?
When I was there, it was just to see Carlos, and we were doing okay as a couple. I wasn't afraid of him then. I came to Canada, and then things changed because Carlos became irrational when he came to know about the baby.
Why did you not seek help in Canada the last time that you came?
Well, when we last came to Canada, it was a long time ago and we were all doing fine. The situation was different and I wasn't pregnant with the baby. We just came for family vacation and everything was okay. Things have changed a lot.
Do you have any family members elsewhere in El Salvador?
No, I just have my sister who lives in the same town as me in El Salvador. I don't really know anywhere in the country. There's nowhere that I can go.
Thank you, Madam Member. That's all my question here.
Okay, time for submission. Ms. Member, our client has experienced years of abuse at the hands of her husband. There's a clear pattern of escalating violence from our client's husband. Our client faces a clear and real possibility of severe harm if she needs to return to El Salvador. There is a fear that is current as evidenced by our client's testimony and the supporting evidence. Ms. Lopez experienced subjective and objective fear. According to the ADJ test, Federal Court of Appeal, Ms. Lopez has a well-founded fear. Our client has a well-founded objective fear as evidenced by the recent actions of her husband. The client has also demonstrated a well-established fear as escalated as evidenced by the escalating pattern of abuse by her husband and the suffering of her children as a result. My client's ability to seek state protection has been adequately explored by the client as reflected in the national documentation package. Our client cannot depend on the state to protect her as a woman facing domestic violence in El Salvador. There's evidence of past personal incidents in which state protection did not materialize for our client. Ms. Lopez experiences a fear of persecution from her husband. As per Canada versus Ward, the state is not the agent of persecution, but rather her husband. There's a clear failure of the state to protect our client, and our client has made significant efforts to avail herself of state protection. Lastly, internal flight alternatives are non-existent for our client. She remains at risk throughout the country, and there are no reasonable, safe alternatives for safety for our client in El Salvador. As per Thuranavucarusa versus Canada, the test of whether an IFA exists is a flexible one that takes into account the particular situation of the claimant and the particular country involved. Our client has outlined her claim that her husband is well connected throughout the country. El Salvador is a small nation and anonymity for a client would be impossible. The client does not have any family or relatives in other parts of the country, and El Salvador itself is dangerous for a single woman with children to live outside her regular community, as documented in the national documentation packages. As no such reasonable internal flight alternatives exists for our client. To conclude, I argue that our client should be granted status as a convention refugee pursuant to Section 96 of the Act. Ms. Lopez is a person who, by reason of a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of her membership in a particular social group, which includes women facing domestic violence from their spouse. Ms. Lopez is outside of her country of nationality and is unable to avail herself the protection of her home country, El Salvador. She faces an objective and well-founded fear as a member of her convention group. Our client has explored state protection in her country of origin, which has failed to protect her, and there are no internal flight alternatives for our client, which are reasonable. As such, we request that our client be granted status as a convention refugee as per Section 96 of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. Thank you, Madam Member.